Hey y'all, let's chat. So today I have Saiyd Joyce with me, who happens to be a black therapist in Chicago. Y'all know they rare out here. I'm so stoked to have a black male therapist with me today because I talk to a lot of my friends, a lot of different guys, but to have somebody who kind of can understand my mind and like where I'm coming from and got some emotional intelligence, because y'all know a lot of y'all don't have that out here. I'm so glad to have him. And he has a really interesting story, so I'm really excited for you all to kind of hear more about him. To definitely plug him if you need him, because he is still accepting. See, that's the thing. Black male therapists exist. Finding one with availability, that's your task. Like, that's what you don't see. So the fact that this man is not fully booked yet, it's only a matter of time. Like, it's coming. So if you are in the Chicagoland area, I suggest you get to it. I'm going to have all his information so you can find out how to go about seeking services with him if that's something that you're interested in. I think it's so important to have black men who are committed to the mental health cause, because it is a predominantly female field. Like, it is dominated by women. And so the fact that we have black men who need this and can come and talk to somebody that looks like them, that can hopefully understand like their paths and their journeys, and all the things that you all face, especially in today's climate. It's so important to have somebody to talk to that just gets it, I think. So I want to give my audience a chance to get to know you. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to just let you like give us a spiel. Let's start with like, where are you from?
So originally I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I grew up in Kentucky.
Okay.
I moved to Kentucky when I was like 7 years old.
Okay.
So I say I'm from Kentucky because I guess the most important part of my years was in Kentucky.
Was in Kentucky.
But like all my family still live in Pennsylvania, so. And
how'd you get to Chicago?
How did I get to Chicago? So I was actually dating somebody that was from Harvey.
Oh, not Harvey! That's going to be hilarious. How did you meet a girl from Harvey? Online?
She went to another school. She went to a school in Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah, and we met. I think we met out like one time, like after like a little after spot. And we started dating. And she always wanted to come back to Chicago. So before I even went to grad school, I was like, I applied to grad school in Chicago. I got in, and then we was like,
where'd you go?
I went to UIC.
Oh, nice. And that was a social work program, right?
Yep, Jane Addams School of Social Work.
Beautiful. I think I applied there too when I was applying. So you applied, got in, and y'all made the move together.
Yep, and we came out here together, but
So can I ask a personal question? How long were you out here before stuff went south?
I was out here before stuff went south, like 2 years.
Okay, that's not bad. It's not like you got out here and like shit started just everything just started to go to shit.
Nah. And I wouldn't necessarily say it went south. I think we both just went like, I went east, she went west kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of going y'all separate ways.
Yeah. It wasn't nothing bad though. Like ain't no bad blood or nothing like that.
Okay, good. Well, we're glad to have you in the Windy City.
I appreciate it. I love the Windy City.
I was about to say, as far as like weather, are we completely different from Kentucky?
Like Kentucky is like a mixed bag. Kentucky gets like we get stuff from the south, from the east coast, and from the west or whatever. So, I mean, we'll mess around in a couple of years. We have like super bad winters, but it ain't like bad as Chicago. Chicago cold.
Yeah, it's been cold. It's cold as hell here today. So let's talk a little bit about like, how old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay. I don't know why I thought you were younger, but come on, 35?
35.
Grown.
Just turned 35. Yeah.
All right. Happy belated birthday.
I appreciate that.
So how'd you come to decide you wanted to be a therapist? Was that something that you always thought for yourself? Like what really, and you can go into your story and tell it as much as you like.
Feel comfortable, I guess. Oh, man. So I never wanted to be a therapist. I wouldn't say I wanted to be a social worker.
Okay.
But like I grew up in care a little bit, boot camps, group homes, detention centers, and all I knew was like social services.
Okay.
So when I decided to go to school, I was looking at the list of like colleges or whatever, or careers, and I was like, man, what am I gonna do? And the only thing that stood out to me was like, you familiar with social work? Just do social work. And I always had like I've always personally had like good experiences with social workers.
Okay.
Like one lady in particular was actually like my juvenile probation officer. We still keep in touch. Dope lady. Like she was such a dope lady. Caucasian lady. She was like young. I think when she was my probation officer, she might have been in her early 20s.
Okay.
But she was like super cool. She always looked out. She always kept it real. Like, and me and my best friend, we had the same probation officer. We weren't even supposed to be together, but she would see us in the community together, and she was just like, just be good. But she always knew like they friends. You can't keep them away from each other. And it's unrealistic too. So she never put like any like messed up expectation on us that we couldn't live by. She always understood.
And I feel like it's so important for counselors and like therapists and social workers to leave impressions like that on people, because just like that favorite teacher you have, when you interact with people who you feel like are genuinely there, who really support you, like that, you take that with you throughout life. Yeah,
she supported me a lot. Honestly, like I could like sometimes I say, she helped me get through undergrad. Like even when she wasn't even my probation officer no more, and I had A's out of like her system and went on to like the adult system. And like I remember my car would get towed or get boots and stuff, and I'm like, man, I'm broke. I ain't got no money. I call her. She social work career, social work, making social work money. She cash at me $120 something. Wow. But it wasn't cash out back then, but she'd make sure she'd send me the money to make sure I was good. She always just looked out. I always looked out.
And that's what I think people forget too, is like our work doesn't necessarily always stop when people walk out when people walk out your office. Like when you truly connect with somebody, like of course with boundaries, but people they reach out to you. They want to make sure that you're okay. They want to stay connected to you or with you in some form. And it's not just like I think sometimes we get a bad connotation, like especially from the young ones, where it's like. You only here because you get a paycheck, and it's like they don't really understand that, like, number one, usually early in the field, we not making no money. Even gradually into the field, he a social worker, so he make better money than me. They pay social workers a little better than they pay counselors. But before you even start really, you in the field, 2 years until you get your clinical license, and that's when your your money starts rolling in. But prior to that, like, you're not making no real money, so it's like, I'm here because I care, because this is the type of work I'm passionate about.
They tell you that in college, like don't go in social work for the money.
Absolutely.
Like I remember hearing that all the time. But I guess back to your question though, so I did not never want to be a counselor. I remember even being in college and even as a social worker, you gotta take like psychology classes. And we used to role play like therapy, and I used to sit there and be like I don't want to be here. I used to just like sit on my desk like this, and when we were role play therapy, I'd be like, where you come from is like, you ain't even supposed to be talking about that. Like that's like you violating your family business.
Family code, right.
You ain't even supposed to be talking about that, or just like, are you just getting, you get that what you got in you, like, man, just suck it up and go on, like just deal with it by yourself. You ain't gonna be telling these people your business. So I never wanted to do it.
Wow, I'm so glad you said that, because so many Black men and even Black women, but a lot of Black men hold that same belief that like you don't need to be talking to your business. Like, what is talking to somebody gonna do? How is that gonna help you? I literally just had this conversation with a few people that I occasionally hang out with, and therapy came up, and it was like, well, I talk to God, I give God all my problems, or like you said, like just this idea that the space isn't significant enough to like really make change.
No, it's not at all.
So to see how you transitioned from that frame of mind, like how did you make that leap?
So I went through this phase of my life where like I was like pushing people out of my life. Like I was like, what's going on? I was just pushing people out of my life, and I wasn't like happy no matter. Like I remember graduating. Like, I was never even supposed to go to college, but I wasn't happy. I walk across the stage, I see all my friends, like, they was celebrating their graduation. But to me, it's like, then graduate grad school, just like. Okay. And so I was starting, and then somebody asked me one day, like, what make you happy? Like, I don't know. And then I think I went to a phase where I was, like, in a dark place, like, battling depression. And I didn't really know, like, what was going on with myself. I was like, man, what's going on with you? Like, you ain't never happy. Like, you over here, like, I'll be having all my homeboys, they're like, man, you jumping all these obstacles and stuff. Like, you really, like, breaking, like, curses.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, it is what it is. Like my mind was always somewhere else. And one night I was just like, man, what's going on? Like, why you always tripping? Like, why you keep pushing good people out your life? Like, why you keep self-isolating? Mm-hmm. And I remember I had got on like Google and stuff, and I started looking at like, dang, am I depressed? Then I started reading like the symptoms and stuff of depression. And I was like, bro, you might be depressed. And then like I've always had like super bad anxiety. Okay. So I'm talking about full out panic attacks. Like I remember panic attacks so bad, like I'm hopping up, like going to the emergency room, like thinking something's going on with myself. Yeah. So in the midst of like me discovering what's going on with myself, I've always been like, you gotta handle this yourself. Mm-hmm. So I started trying to like self-diagnose myself and like treat myself. Right. And the more I decided like treat myself, the more interested in like therapy.
And even after grad school, you still had this frame of mind that you could treat yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even in grad school, even after grad school, I still didn't want to be a therapist after grad school. Right.
That's why I'm just catching up, like making sure I got the timeline right. Like even in the midst of finishing and like going through psychology classes, you was still like, yeah, no.
Nah. And then and when you get your MSW, you still don't take a lot of like psychology courses like that.
And I think it's a difference between taking your psych classes and taking counseling classes too.
For sure. Yeah, so the more I started to want to like treat myself and understand what was going on in my own head, the more interesting like therapy got. Like the more I'm like, oh man, it's kind of dope. Like it's just like, cause I always like mental stuff, always like mind games, always like learning. Yeah. So even in the midst of me like learning this stuff, it's like, oh, it's kind of dope, And then of course, the next thing after you get your MSW is like either a PhD or your license. Right. So I was like, man, I'm just get my license. And I actually had my hours for like 2 years. Mm-hmm. Like I sat on them for like 2 years. I had an application filled out. I sat on it for like 2 years. It was in the trunk of my car. The car ended up getting stolen, and they took everything, my license. So I had to like track down my supervisor and do all that stuff again. But yeah, then I just went ahead and got licensed, and then, like after doing all the CEUs and all that stuff and just learning more, I just fell in love with it.
Nice. See, time changes things. Experience changes things too.
I swear.
That's dope to hear. I think that what's interesting is the fact that like you went and kind of did this extra research on your own, because like you said, like in social work, like my degree is in counseling. So the program I was in was specifically to learn how to counsel people, to learn how to be a therapist. Whereas like social workers, they kind of get more of like the social work side, and then they get some of like the counseling and like you said, like sitting and learning how to do assessments and like talk to people, like do talk therapy. But that doesn't, you all don't have to go that route. So when you do go that route, it's kind of like you do have to go out your way to kind of learn more that you didn't necessarily get in your program. But
for sure.
Can you talk? So me and Saiyd met on Instagram, right? And one of the reasons why I wanted to interview him and why he was open to coming to doing the coming on my channel was because he followed up with sending me an article that was written about him many years ago. And I read the article and I was like, oh yes, absolutely, gotta have you here. And mainly because Saiyd has a past. He has not always been like upstanding professional, graduate, all of these things that you kind of see before you. So can you talk a little bit about like your childhood and some of your struggles?
So I guess it's like, let me see, where should I start? Man, I guess I come from the same place. Like I don't like to isolate my story. Okay. And it's actually something that I'm still trying to work on too when it comes to like being vulnerable and talking
about it.
So this actually is still something that I'm even processing. So like, I mean, I just grew up like everybody else. Like majority of black men. Like, actually, my aunt raised me. I didn't grow up with my mother. My mother, obviously, not obviously, but my mother battled like drug addiction. Okay. Still continues to battle drug addiction. I got 3 sisters. They was all older than me. So up until I was like 6 or 7, I lived with my mother. Well, I wouldn't say I lived with my mother. We lived with somebody else. And my mother was there,
right?
But she was gone a lot. My older sister, she was like 15 at the time. If I was like 6, she was like, I think like 15. So she took care of me, and then my other sisters, like we like back to back. Okay. So it was like me 35, 36, 37, or 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
And then my other sister 15. So she took care of us. Like my mother was like in and out and stuff like that. Let's see. So my father ended up passing away. He ended up passing away in prison or jail or whatever. And then like when he passed away, like my aunt on my father's side, like basically like, I'm coming to get you.
How old were you when he passed?
7.
Okay.
She was like, I'm coming to get you, and my other sister who shared the same dad.
Okay.
So like we stayed with my grandma for a little while, then she shot to Pennsylvania. She got us and brought us to Kentucky. Well, took us to Kentucky. Mm. So she, you know, I love her to death. Like I love my aunt to get to death or whatever. But she was like young still. Like she was like freshly married, and here she is like raising 2 kids. That's her aunt. That's her niece and nephew. And then she's always like raising other kids. Like at one point in time, it's like 6 of us kids in a 2-bedroom with her and her new husband, who ain't have relationships with none of them kids really. So their relationship got rocky or whatever. Then we ended up moving. But you know, when you move, you know, you're a single parent household or a single income household, you go to where you can afford. Right. So we end up living in this neighborhood. It's called Winburn. It's like one way in, one way out neighborhood. Mm-hmm. The whole neighborhood. I was thinking about it earlier. It probably ain't no bigger than 3 acres. Like it's small, and if it's that big, it's like it's crazy. But it's a small neighborhood, and like, you know, you become a product of that neighborhood, which is like the guns and the stealing the cars and the drugs and the skipping school, and I just fell in line with it. Mm. Like for one, before we moved to that neighborhood, we grew up I went to another neighborhood that I just wasn't accepted in this neighborhood. Like,
what did that look like?
Man, it was rough. I mean, I remember I was in 3rd grade. I used to get jumped like every day.
Oh wow.
I'm talking about every day.
So you kind of just became like a target. You were more so a target.
I was definitely a target in this neighborhood. It got to the point I had to start taking a long way home.
Oh.
Like I used to to hear that. Nah, that's all good. So I got to learn so much from it. I started taking a long way home. I always loved football, but I didn't even go. I hated going to practice because I would get jumped at practice. And then eventually, like, you just start fighting back, but that don't fix nothing. Yeah. So eventually, like, when I finally get to this other neighborhood, I was just embraced. And then I was like, man, this is home. Like, you know, so you just fall in line with everything. Like, outside at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I fell in love with, like, stealing cars. Like, I just so fell in love with doing that. Like, so much.
Was it adrenaline a thing for you?
It was adrenaline. Definitely, like a lot of people don't understand, adrenaline is like a chemical, so it's an addiction.
Absolutely, yeah. You always chasing that high. That's what like how do you think people get gambling addictions? Like that first win, that adrenaline, that dopamine, that serotonin, all these things that like make us happy, that flushes through your brain, and you spend for gamblers, they whole life savings trying to chase that high.
Yeah, so I fell in love. I fell in love with that, and then of course like what comes with that, it comes with like the status, and then what comes with the status, like the drugs, and then the guns and stuff like that. So I fell in love with guns too. Like I always had this like rush for like guns, and because I always I love mafia movies. Okay. You know, so and then mind you, this whole time I don't even know who I am. Yeah. Because like I didn't have my own identity when I was young. It was like always into my sisters. They put their identity on me, right? Okay. Then this other neighborhood like that I went to, I hated them. Then I finally get in this neighborhood, and it's like, man, you can be who you want to be. Right. And we hate that neighborhood you hate, that you just came from. So I just fell in love with it, man. And then like, so I was always smart though. I never was stupid. I can like not go to school for a week, still come home with B's and C's. You know, I can or whatever. So I would go to school, but after school, I was turning up. Like I was like literally in the streets until I don't even know, man, until whenever. And
this whole time you were still with your aunt, right? And there wasn't, I'm assuming, like much discipline, or you were just out of control where.
Nah, you know what? She is like a disciplinary, but she was a street woman too though. Like, okay. You serious? She got like goals in her mouth and stuff. You know, so she was like a street, but she was always like, I don't care what you do, you going to go to school. You gonna bring them. That's why I always maintain grades. Grades, yeah. And I think she had trust in me a lot, cause like I said, I've always been like a meek and a mild kind of person. Like everybody else is loud. Yeah. I'm gonna be loud, but I'm just gonna might steal your car type kind of. I'm not gonna be loud, but I was always just like fly on the radar, and I attribute that to like just like my childhood, man. Like when we bounced from house to house, it was always like, don't be seen, don't be heard. Yeah. So I took on the identity of like just flying under the radar.
Yeah.
So
you didn't want to cause any issues.
Yeah, I ain't want to be there
anyway.
What
y'all right, yeah.
We weren't supposed to be in their house anyway. So, let's see. So, when I was like 14, I done some real stupid stuff. Me and my friends ended up like breaking into like a gun store, and we stole a lot of guns. And we eventually got caught for it, and then we got caught. I got tried as an adult.
At 14?
Yeah.
Get out. Why did they do that at 14? It's not even like you was 15 or 16 or 17.
I might have been 15 though. I might have just turned 15.
But I still feel like trying as an adult is like 16, 17 years old.
No, they railroaded us. So it was like requirements that in order to be tried as adults, it's like certain requirements. Like you had to have a previous charge. You had to it had to be like a class, one of the high class felonies. They had to say you was gang related. And it was one more, it was like, might have been like 5 categories. And I fell in 3 of them. I had one previous charge because I got caught joyriding. They said like I always been like in a small circle, just like 5 of us. They found a bandana in my house, like a bandana.
So
and it's like, oh, it's only 5 of y'all click.
That's a gang, right?
Yeah, so they put us in there and said we was gang related. And the third one, it was a high class felony.
Wow.
So they tried me as a dog, gave me 10 years. So I never got to finish. I never been to high school. I was in high school like 6 months. I was in my freshman year like 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, no prom, no winter ball. I never got to experience none of that stuff.
Get out. So when you end up in a situation like that, you get your GED, you get out, and then
I got my GED. I remember I was in boot camp. I actually thought I failed my GED. It was an old GED test too. Like we had to just circle the things that went on the computer. I remember I got my GED, man, and when I came home, like I did community college for a little while, but I was just so intimidated though, because like I'm coming really with an 8th grade education,
right?
And honestly, I got kicked out of 8th grade. Like the last couple weeks of school, I got kicked out of 8th grade.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here like 10 years. They put you at 24. Like so, your life didn't really start until 24 for you.
Until 24, yeah. Well, I didn't do the whole 10 years. I.
Okay, how much time?
You come on, like I came home, like you. I did the boot camps.
Okay.
I was in the detention center for like 10 months, and then I did the boot camp, and then you come home like 17 and a half, going on 18 or something like that, and you adult probation. First, you juvenile probation for the last couple months or whatever your juvenile career, then you go to adult probation.
Okay.
Until I'm 21.
Okay. So how long were you like in boot camps and programs? Like when were you out?
It's like 17 and a half or something like that.
Okay. So I mean, it was still like what 4 years.
Yeah, like 3-ish.
Okay, and then so what for the remaining, like because it was a 10-year
for the
charge?
remainder of the time. So when I was in boot camp, I excelled in the program. Like I reached one of the highest ranks you can be. It was like it was like Bravo, Alpha, Charlie, Delta.
Okay.
You start off as like essentially a peasant, then a corporal, then a sergeant. So I made it all the way to like the sergeant rank. It was like one of the 2 people that made it to a sergeant rank. And like my situation was different than everybody else. Everybody else like had status charges, like skipping school, maybe possession charges. Nobody really had like adult charges.
Yeah. So
the boot camp had a lawyer, and he got my case back in court, and I ended up getting shocked. I ended up getting shock probation. So I shocked out instead of paroling out.
What is shock? What is the difference?
This is another form of probation.
Okay.
So instead of like my co-defendants, they paroled out. They got out on parole. I shocked out, and it took my time down to like 5 years shock probation.
Okay.
So I did that little time, and then I did 5 years of probation, adult probation.
Okay. And when you're on probation, pretty much what are the guidelines?
Man, I remember, man. It's like it sucked, man. You got to be down there. When you're on supervised probation, you got to go down there. Obviously, you got to do the drug test. But I ain't never had an issue like with drugs. You got to report, like keep a job or go to school, and you got to pay supervision fees.
So, what do you feel like that time, especially that 3.5 years, did for you mentally and emotionally?
It changed my life. It changed my life because, like I said, I was in that one way in, one way out neighborhood. I went to, it's called Jackson, Kentucky. It's like Royal get. It was 2 black. It was me and one other dude. It was only black people down there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's probably like 4 black people in the whole little town. Like I remember we'd be like.
So you was mainly running with white boys.
When I got in boot camp.
Oh, okay.
But nah, when I was So I grew up in like Lexington, Kentucky. It's like right outside of Louisville, right outside of Cincinnati. It's all black boys.
What's the rapper that be talking about that?
We got your boy from Louisville.
What is his name?
Bryson Tiller.
No, I ain't even talking about Bryson. It's a rapper.
And then you got the new boy. What's his name? I think Jack Harlow, the white dude.
Nope, that's not even what I'm talking about.
It's another rapper from.
Who? It's gonna come to me. Keep talking.
Alright, so when I they sent me to like the backwoods of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So when I got into the backwoods of Kentucky, they like when we got in the community, they like y'all you two duck, cause like you know it's like country, mm-hmm. like mountains, hills, trees. So but it changed my life though. I've always been like into sports. I got out there, I was like playing baseball. Mm-hmm. Like I got into like the softball. I went camping for the first time. I went canoeing for the first time, and it showed me like, yo, it's actually some
different stuff.
Some dope stuff out here that's not lame.
Right.
So, and then I was surrounded by good men. Like, it's like, dang, so I can actually trust men. Mm-hmm. Like, yo, actually do got my best interests. So it just changed my life.
So after you came out, like, how'd you navigate like starting undergrad?
So when I came out, I didn't even start school immediately. I think I went to community college for a couple years, but it didn't work. And then I ended up diving.
What you mean it didn't work?
I was home, but I still had like one foot in, one foot out. Mm-hmm. Like I wanted to still like be out there, so like I would hang out with one of my friends in like communities I shouldn't even be in.
Okay.
You know. And although I didn't never get back involved in none of that stuff, like I still kind of like had that urge to be around it.
Yeah, and you can see how easy. I think that's something I want to point out, like how easy it is to fall back into old patterns. Like people think like you go to jail or you go to juvie or whatever, and it should be enough to like want to completely change like your life around and never do that stuff again. But it doesn't like work like that psychologically. Like it's a part of you also has to grieve. Like not being able to have that life anymore. Like
I felt guilty. I felt guilty.
Why you feel?
Like I felt so guilty because like everybody I grew up with, I felt like you get taught like yo that's going to like you do this is what we do. Mm-hmm. Like this is what we do. Like why are you trying to do something different?
Yeah.
So I felt pressure and I felt guilt. I felt like I was going against the grain. Like it's like my friends
to try to be better.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they still out here doing what they doing and like. No one's ever came to me though like, man, you a lame. No one's ever came to me and said nothing like that.
Yeah.
But it was still like, I felt like I wanted to still be there. Like,
yeah.
You know, so I dropped out of dropped out of community college. And then I started like a plethora of businesses. Like I had a cleaning business that was actually really successful.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a taxi business and I started transporting cars. And then one day like, transporting cars stuff, that's what threw me back into school. Like, we got in a wreck on the road one time, and it was like 2 months to get it back going. So I I'm gonna take my money and go back to school. So got the little insurance payout, and I went back to school.
That is so interesting. Yeah. And what appealed to you about entrepreneurship? You just didn't want to work for nobody, or?
Man, I had bad luck. So I wouldn't say I had bad luck. I had a lot of obstacles. So I remember I was working at like a Shell's gas station. And my probation officer had recommended me for this Kentucky Spirit Youth Award to like kids who get out but don't get back in trouble.
Okay.
So I win the award. Mm. They put it in the newspaper.
Okay.
The owner of the gas station come in. He reads the newspaper. He's like, because he don't know nothing about me. Mm. He's like, he looks at me. He don't say nothing. He leave. Next day I come in, I'm not on the schedule no more. I'm like, what's going on, bro? You ain't put me on the schedule. He's like, blah, 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 blah. My manager's standing behind him, like, with his head down, just shaking his head. So I'm like, all right, cool. So he ain't put me on the schedule. I come back the next day, I'm like, what's on the schedule? And then he's like, man, you just turn your shirt in. Then he tried to say something like, oh, well, your cigarette count keep coming up, man. So I'm like, bro, I don't even smoke cigarettes. Right. I've never smoked a cigarette. And he's like, well, we just gotta let you go. So then I find out, the manager ended up calling me and telling me, man, he read that article and he just fired you.
Wow.
Then I had a job at Amazon. I worked at Amazon for like 9 months. Amazon do a background check, fired me. So I was like, I'm doing my own thing. Like, I don't need these people. So I just got into doing my own thing.
How'd you end up like navigating, like getting a resource to start?
I have no clue.
You don't remember?
I have no clue. Me and my best friend, like, his sister had a cleaning business. It was like, we just gonna do her, we gonna mock hers. So we started mocking hers, and then things just started like falling in place. I ended up buying a franchise. We ended up buying a cleaning franchise, and like, man, we just like, we made so much money, like, just doing that. Like, we just did it for a long time. We was able to like pass it to family members for a while.
Really?
And move on to the next venture. Like,
that's dope. So, of course, I have questions. I think one of the things I want to make sure to ask you is, like, what advice do you have for like young black men who are like fresh out of juvie or fresh out of jail and could get discouraged by like the no's and the getting fired and all of that? Because I'm sure now, like, the fact that they kind of caught you after you had already been employed, but now a lot of the time, like, they do that stuff through the door. So like, there are so many limited opportunities. Like, what advice would you give to them?
First, it's to reframe the word discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
I think being discouraged is irrelevant.
Okay.
I think, like, when you think about like therapy or whatever, or you think about just reframing things, discouragement is just part of the journey.
Right.
Like, you're allowed to be discouraged. It's like, you know what I'm saying, like, you when you feel and get discouraged, it's like, take a breath, refresh, chill out, go do something to get grounded again, and keep going. Discourages don't mean like it's an end all be all.
Right.
You know, and I think a lot of people, when they get discouraged, it's like, oh, it's an end all be all.
They just give up.
Not so much like if you on a road trip, right? Your car don't get discouraged. Your car get discouraged. Your car just need gas. So you pull over, you refill it up, and then you keep going.
Oh, I love that analogy. I'm stealing that. I'll definitely be using that in session.
But yeah, I think it's gonna be a journey. I mean, if you got a charge, it's gonna be a journey.
Right.
Like, but eventually the destination gonna be so far back there, and you're gonna be so close to. I mean, where you started from gonna be so far back there, and you're gonna be so close. You're gonna be that much closer to your destination. If you just give yourself time, like, I was actually talking to my friend earlier, and we was actually talking about like one of the questions or whatever. And he was telling me, like, we was talking about it, and he was like, it reminded him of something. Like, he was like, man, I was on the treadmill, and he was doing like interview sprints. And it was like, man, like, he was like, had it on 12, he was sprinting for like a minute. Then when he was so tired, he's like, man, I just feel like quitting. But then they thought, like, if I stay here for like 40 seconds and rest, just don't leave. Basically, it's like, I'm just not gonna go leave. I'm just gonna stand here. Yeah. And if you stay there, you will get that energy back, and you better go back to the next, to the next interval. Yeah. So it's just all about not quitting, man.
And I think that it's one thing to say, like, yes, don't quit, don't give up, keep going. What would you say about like how to kind of challenge or not give into the pressure to like go back to old neighborhoods and like fall back into old patterns? Because like you said, like, people start looking at you differently when you want more, you want things that are different from what they've ever known. So I think that's another piece I want you to speak to, is like how can they rest assured in themselves that like to not just allow people to kind of push them back into that old space.
Separate yourself. Like, it's nothing wrong with separating yourself. I think a lot of people think that like isolation is like bad, and a lot of people don't want to get in isolation because they don't want to sit with themselves.
Oh yeah.
So you gotta just sit with yourself. And the moment you sit with yourself, then you can be you. I remember when I left Kentucky, I didn't know nobody here but my ex's family.
Right.
And like, I started realizing, like, yo, I'm kind of into, like, I'm just not into gym shoes. I like shoes too. So I started buying shoes. I'm like, okay, I kind of like these more than gym shoes. So I said it to say, I was like, when I got away from my friends, I got a good circle of friends, but you don't really understand how much of a role they play in what you do. Yeah, how much of an influence they are until you separate yourself. So the biggest thing I can say is just separate yourself. And when you separate yourself, you come into like, man, this is who I actually am. Like, and then then you don't have those distractions like, bro, like, we supposed to be doing this, or want to do this, or hear this. Right. You just gotta just separate yourself.
Because then you give yourself an opportunity to really explore what your interests are. And I think sometimes if you struggle to like have your own identity as a kid, as a teen, and then like you going, and of course your identity more so gets formed around like the people that you cling to.
For sure.
You can easily grow up to be an adult who doesn't really have an understanding of like what their interests or their options are, as far as like what they like, what they don't like, because either like I see a lot of people who like family or their parents or whoever has always made the decisions for them, and then you get around your friends who like you usually end up taking on pieces of their identities because maybe they're more sure of themselves than you are at that age, and so you're like, okay, well that looks right or that seems right, so I'm gonna just fall in line with that.
Man, we like people, especially like I want to say men because I can only speak from a man's perspective. A black man, we don't really know who we are. Like we so afraid of ourselves. Like a lot of people stay high all the time because they don't like who they are sober.
Oh yes.
So we really don't know who we are. We think like, I watched the Mike Tyson and Boosie thing. And Mike Tyson said something to Mo3, the rapper or whatever. He's like, had his jewelry on. And he's like, who are you? And he said something about his jewelry. And Mike Tyson basically like, but who are you without all that? And you just really can't answer that question. Who are you when your friends ain't around? You keep these people around you because that's your identity. When you lay down at night and you sitting there and your shirt's off, you in your boxers and your socks and stuff is off, who are you then?
Yeah. I think, man, that's so important because we do that with our careers. We do that, like, if people have high status families, like, they attach their identity to that, or just anything that we perceive to have some sort of value as far as what society deems valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know that's something I've worked on doing, especially I know, like, with women, like, we grow up to believe that a part of our identity is supposed to be, like, a wife and a mother. And now we see that, like, of course, women are stepping away from that because we have more options than we used to when that was what our sole identity was. But then I also think that there is a counterpoint to like women who are stay-at-home moms and are, like who saw that for themselves from a very early age that they wanted to be a wife and to be a mother. But I also like have had clients where I have to tell them, even in that, you're still somebody outside of that. You are still whatever your name is, a black woman, or or whatever it is that you look like. Like that's still, you don't want to let that be your only thing. And I know I had to realize, like, outside of, as much as I would love to be a wife and a mother, like what fulfills me outside of that? Like who am I without like my career? Because a lot of times we describe ourselves based on like what it is that we do or what we think the other person will see as valuable or cool or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So what kind of support do you feel like you had while going through your struggles? Is it very, like, do you think it's important for black men to be able to, like, have people that they can use as a resource and as support?
Hell yeah. So, my aunt really's been going through, like, she was like, man, she was there for me. I remember at one point in time, I got a card from her, like, every day. Like, literally, like, a month before Christmas, every day, she sent me a card. I got a card in the mail. It's, like, always encouraging. And on top of that, I have 3 good close friends. I'm talking about and we support it. And, like, they're, like, honestly, probably, my aunt and my 3 friends, like, my biggest support system. Like, they might not even be, like, I remember, I tell this sometimes, this story sometimes. I remember I was having, like, relationship issues, and me and my friend, we had just came from the barbershop. It was nice outside. He had just got his car washed. But I was still having, like, relationship woes. And I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. I'm like, bro, I hop in the passenger seat, he got the windows down, sunroof up. It's a nice day outside. And I think Kentucky was playing, too, that day. We was about to go watch the game. I was like, man, I was going to talk about that. He like, man, I don't want to hear that, man. Let's not talk about that right now. Let's just go on. And it kind of hit me a little bit. Because it's like, yo, do we ever get this space to talk?
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, I don't want to hear it. He's like, man, I don't want to hear that right now. Man, we'll talk about it later. But I don't shade him at all because he's speaking his truth, too.
Yeah.
And I know when it comes to other stuff, like, that's, like, we there. But I say that, I tell it, like, I have a good support system, but we're all learning to be men, really. We're all learning that emotions is a natural part of a man. Yeah. So we just growing together.
So you attribute like little stuff like that to just being like he ain't there yet.
He's like he's getting there though. He's got there. This was like maybe like a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, but we definitely like, man, you see our group there. sometimes it be a bunch of emotions, or if they don't be in the group, it be a side conversation.
Yeah.
Amongst just different members of the group, and it's like, man, but we all at a point now, like, man,
you can talk about it. And I think like one thing that's important to remember is there are so many black men who feel like they shouldn't talk to nobody.
That's sad. It's sad.
Or that they don't need anybody. Like, that you just supposed to. I had a black man when I lost my job, and I will forever bring this up. And I can't guarantee that it was a black man, but I'm pretty sure 99% that it was a black man. When I lost my job, I had a GoFundMe, and someone from a private page, like a fake page, DM'd me and was like, how dare you be out here like asking, like begging for money, like you need to go and like get it out the mud yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, damn, you're mad that I have people that love and support me and want to help me, and you believe that it would be better for me to go and do this on my own. Why? Like, especially with like. One thing I've seen on Twitter is like pointing out the fact that black people don't get to benefit from like their family systems or like the people who really support them. But white people can come in and glow up off their generational wealth and nobody bats an eye.
Yeah. So it's a couple things. Black men do need to talk to people, man. It's just like we don't go to the gym because our leg is broke. You know what I'm saying? That's not why you go to the gym. You go to the gym to like build and grow. Right. And it's saying that's what therapy is. That's what talking to somebody is. It's an opportunity to build and grow. So we got to reframe. Like, we got to reframe how we look at therapy. Like, I really love that whole Mike Tyson Bootsy thing, because he's not a therapist by any means. But he reframed, like, that's what therapy can really look like. Yeah. And if you find somebody, there's therapists out there that's going to talk to you like that. Yeah. That's going to be like, yo, you tripping, like, shut up, pay attention. Right. So if we can reframe therapy, it's not you not laying on the couch crying your eyes out all the time. Right. Granted, it do happen. Right. But that's not, and it's always, and it's not like that. The building's not sterile all the time. Mm-hmm. You might walk in there and be a whole vibe in there. Yeah. And we need to let people know, like, we need to reframe how we look at mental health therapy. Another thing is, in defense of black men, I remember, like, we grow up being told, like, yo, get it out the mud. I remember being in Pee Wee football practice, getting all in my emotions about something, and the first thing the coach said, go run. Yeah. Go, if you're going to run. Or if you're going to cry, run. Right. If you're going to cry, go home. Yeah. So emotion has always been a punishment. Yes. It's always been a punishment. The only emotion that we allowed to show is anger.
It's anger. And that's why I tell so many of my clients that, like, it's difficult for them to identify what it is they're actually feeling, because so many, especially in the black community, we grow up like latching on to anger first. So then we use anger to cover up disappointment, jealousy, fear, anxiety, because anger allows us to be tough. Like, all of those other emotions you have to be vulnerable with, like, in expressing. Like, I can show you that I'm mad at you, but if I sit here and I tell you that you hurt me, then that makes me feel weak.
Oh man, it makes you feel so weak. And it's like, that's why so many relationships don't work. It's like, all your life, right, you're not allowed to feel anything but anger. Then you become an adult, you start thinking more about stability you get in a relationship. And then you get with somebody that exposes you to those other feelings. And it's like, it's foreign. Mm-hmm. Like, those feelings is foreign. So you're like, this thing on forever, I can get up out of here. Yeah. Then you're gone. Then you're on to the next one. Mm-hmm. Then she exposed you to another feeling. Then boom, you're on to the next one. Or that feeling gets so unbearable because you never felt it. Then you start engaging in domestic violence. Mm-hmm. You're like, I'm supposed to be feeling like this. So you run from something. Then when you finally exposed to it, you don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. Like, why am I crying? Yeah. Why do I feel sad? I don't even know what feeling sad feel like, because I buried it a long time ago, because it was always a punishment.
That is profound. I hope y'all are listening. Like, this is some really good stuff. But so let's just wrap this up. But like, why do you think it's important for black people to go to therapy?
I think it's important for black people to go to therapy because it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to get a different perspective. And historically, black people, we've been dealt like a bad hand, like trauma. Like, we got so much historical trauma. Like, and it's like, and people kick what we go through what we went through under the rug so much. But you gotta think, like, we was getting murdered, we still getting murdered. Right. But that that trauma been passed down from generation to generation.
Epigenetics.
Been passed down. So it's good to just get enough perspective. Like, I don't want to just hang on my friends all the time. Like, what are we going to do? It's a blind lead. It could be the blind leading the blind, but it's like we can't.
A lot of y'all is the blind leading the blind. That's why they keep telling you your friends, your significant others, they can't be your therapist.
No, they just going to give you, majority of the time, they just give you emotional support. I'll tell you what they want you to hear is because they're protecting your feelings. So, but if somebody else can challenge or reframe some of my thinking errors, then I can grow from that. I can use that to grow, and I can use that to bring it back to my friends, and we can grow together. But we can't grow in the same circle.
Yeah. And what you're mentioning about like reframing is, I think the core piece to therapy is like, we're not like, obviously a goal is for you to change in the best ways or the ways that you want to, but the idea is like you said, you can have all of these problems going on, but sometimes if we sit and really try to work on how we're thinking, how we're seeing it, that makes a world of difference. Now, that's not to discredit anybody because I think sometimes, when it comes to people who have like very severe depression, they can feel like, it's condescending to sit there and be like, well, just get up in the morning and say you happy, and like some people think that that's like what they should do. And even like I said, in the Black community, it's more so like, well, just do that and you'll be okay. When sometimes like either like it's most of the time a legitimate like chemical imbalance where like there may be a need for medication or again like reinforcing new habits and how to get them to a place of like being more functional where they're not sitting and laying in bed all day. But
they say you're the average of the 5 people you talk to every day. So if you talk to the same 5 people every day, you just.
And then if you really don't talk to anybody, where do you stay? Yeah, I think that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So, we kind of touched on this, but let's just go back over it. Why do you think Black men are resistant to therapy, and what can we do as a community, as individuals, to help shift that resistance?
Like, once again, it's just reframing what therapy is. Like, therapy, like, we Black men are run to the gym and work out, get strong, and be looking nice, but be rotten in the inside. Like, if we can just reframe therapy as like we used to talk about earlier, you're not sitting on somebody's couch just crying your eyes out. What we've been taught a long time ago, it's sorry to say, but it's been wrong. It's like, no shade to nobody's parents, but bro, it was wrong. Like, all that, understand like family business is family business, but we cannot keep constantly operating from like the slave mentality. Yeah. From the mentality is like, we waiting on somebody else to change. We gotta change ourselves. And the only way you can change yourself is to go get you a therapist, man. Reframe your thoughts. Challenge your thinking nerves. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get a different perspective. Therapy, just because you go to therapy don't mean you're depressed anyway. People go there just to like get stuff out, or people go there to help navigate different situations. If your friends can help you navigate a situation, like, seek out a therapist.
Right. And I think sometimes when you see that maybe you haven't had the best result with trying to do it all by yourself, like, that's also very indicative that like maybe you should talk to a professional about like how to just navigate, because like you said, it isn't, I think people forget that like therapy is a process, so you don't come in on day one and spill your guts and tell me all your business. Like, we don't expect that. Like, like you said, you build up the relationship, you build up the rapport, you share what you're comfortable with sharing at that given moment. I guarantee some people have had sessions where you sit and talk about Netflix all day, and it's like, well, why are you paying for that? But it's like,
it's a relief.
It's a relationship, number one, building number one, and two, like, what were you getting ready to say?
I haven't had sessions where me and some of the clients, bro, like, we would literally talk about basketball all the time, and like, or just talk about something, and like, but I tell people like, small talk is therapy. Yeah. Because it's like, for one, it's like, it's normalized. Like, yo, I can just do this. You know, this is okay just as well. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that small talk leads to like figuring stuff out. Yep. You know, you be engaged in the whole conversation about basketball, and then the whole time you be thinking like, I wish my mama would just kept letting me play, but she was never home. It'll take you
into all different types of stuff.
You be
surprised.
That's for that. Yeah. Like, you just never know. Like, that small talk is therapeutic.
I agree. I also think the way we help black men, and look, this is my own opinion because I asked him, but a part of like the second part about like how do we help black men become less resistant to therapy, I also think like more black men need to talk about their experience with therapy with the people in their circle, like they friends, like they uncles, they daddies, like I think and that's how I feel like that's what I feel about mental health in general. Like we destigmatize therapy and mental health by discussing it, by making it a part of
that's
our
how we normalize
normal experience.
That's how we normalize. I was going to therapy like every Friday. Like I was in therapy. I done did hypnotherapy.
You done did you done tried all the time. Look, now I might have to go give me some.
I done tried. I done did it all, and it's been successful, man. Like you feel like so refreshed.
Yeah.
Like you like, man, I've been holding that in for years.
Yeah.
And you still kind of honoring what, like keeping family business safe because a therapist is like legally bound.
I can't tell nobody your business. I had somebody tell me like that they would go to therapy, but they wouldn't necessarily see somebody who was like in their age bracket or a part of their race because like they're worried about like, I guess other circles like finding out stuff. But it's like I could literally lose my license if that happened.
Honestly, you're not even really like if you're my client and I'm your therapist and I see you in public, really all I can really do is give you a head nod and keep going.
And then most of the time, like if you didn't know this, if you see your therapist out, you have to acknowledge them. We don't acknowledge y'all. Like that is we're supposed to most of the time act like we don't see you. So we can't just walk up to you and be like, "Hey, girl, you gonna make your session on Thursday?" Like that's not how that works. So I think that's important to kind of talk about. I done
seen people I done therapy with, and I just leave, like, because I'm like, I don't need. For one, like, I just get up out of there, like, I don't want them to feel any
uncomfortable,
kind of way.
right?
So I just like,
yeah, absolutely. But we're not out here like sharing your business in the street.
We'll lose our license. It's legally bound. It's like having a secret best friend.
You're giving me lots of gems. I am, because I tell people I embrace the whole like. People have said like you just feel like a homegirl, like a friend. Like
that's what I am.
I want you to feel like that because you're not gonna tell me your business if you don't feel like that. Now like I always get a question about like, well, what does that mean for boundaries? And it's like it's more when you're dealing with more functional clients. It's rare that you have a boundary issue, and then when it does come up, you just address it. Like it's not like this huge thing where like you got to sit there and be like, I am not your friend. Like it doesn't work like that. Like, but it rarely comes up because most people know to respect the relationship to a certain degree.
Yeah, for sure.
I've definitely had a client or so like text me after hours. I'm like, okay, so, we're gonna or like solicit. Have you ever had somebody try to solicit advice outside of a session?
I have, but majority of I don't really know. I think like I get a lot of passive attempts. Okay. Like I like a little passive aggressive kind of things. Like I want to talk longer than the session goes on. Yeah, so I get a lot. I mean, I get that kind of stuff. I ain't really had nobody blatantly come out and be like, "So what's up?"
Yeah, no. Like I've it's for me. It's been more so like, okay, we had an issue, and then they like text me, and I'm fine about like getting like like small updates, but like, well, what do you think I should do? And it's like I give you a little, and I'm saying. And we'll continue to talk about this when I see you on Thursday.
Honestly, how I do it, I encourage that my clients do that because for one, it's part of like the relationship building for me. Yeah. So they'll text me through obviously a secure app or whatever. Like man, blah 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 blah. I be like dang, blah 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 blah. So I tell everybody before they leave, man, because I understand like therapy is just such a marathon. Yeah. And sometimes that hour a week just don't get it sometimes. So I encourage, like, if you go through something, you just want to shoot me a text. Yeah. I'll respond to it as soon as I can. Beautiful. We might not engage in another hour conversation about it, but I want to know what's going on. I want to stay updated. You know what I'm saying? And I want to just be, like I said, I'm that secret best friend.
And it's cool that they get excited to share certain things with you. Like, and I feel like that was important. Extremely important for me. Like I've been with my therapist at this point for probably like 5 years now, and it's been times where like random stuff has come up or like just that didn't really put me in a low space, and I've been able to like text her and be like, do you have time for like a quick phone call, especially if she couldn't like see me in the next few days or whatever. And she's done that. Like I think when I lost my job, I had seen her that week, and then I had a meeting. Well, right before I lost my job. So when I got suspended, I had saw her maybe the day of or the day after or something like that. And it was a few days and I was supposed to go back to get like the final result. And she was like, text me when you find out, like when they make a decision or whatever. And so just having that support and then having that phone call with her, and because my first, I told her, I was like, I only care about this because now I can't see you. And because we had that relationship, she's been charging me like next to nothing out of pocket to continue to see her. And I can't wait to be that for somebody else.
Yeah, I love being that for other people. Sometimes probably too much, but
that's okay. That's why you here. We need you. All right, so we wrapping up, but to end and tap off. I don't know what I'm saying today. To close out our conversation and further prove that like therapists are real people and y'all can come and talk to us and it's not going to be like this huge intimidating thing. Like we like the same stuff that y'all like. This is why I do this channel, to show y'all that I'm a real person and I still do therapy with people, and that's okay. I believe both of my parts can coexist, and I'm going to continue to send that message. But I want to do a little fun fact check with Saiyd. What are you currently binge watching on Netflix or Hulu?
So honestly, I don't really watch.
You don't watch TV? I knew you was gonna say that.
I do, but I don't watch it because like I'm starting to get back into it. Okay. Like I watch.
I was about to say, what you do while quarantine?
Man, I just what do I do? I play little stupid games on my phone. Me and my friend, we do like both of us like he played throw football to each other. We went and brought bats and gloves, was out there playing baseball during quarantine.
Okay.
You know, we get outside as much as I can, but like, what was I? So I started on watching the whole Lovecraft thing. I love the second season of Power.
Yeah.
I love. I was watching Colombiana last night.
That's such a good movie.
I watched that movie like back to back.
It's such a good movie.
I love that movie. Let's see. Honestly, I love Harry Potter.
Come on, because anytime Harry Potter is home, I'm gonna watch it.
For real, like last week, I think I watched like all of them.
Oh, that was a long day.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it like every day. Like one day I watched.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I know you didn't get through like.
Nah. I was watching one every day.
Sounds like my type of marathon. What's your favorite book?
So the Harry Potter books, and also I read this book a long time ago. It was called "If Tomorrow Ever Comes" by Cindy Sheldon. Yeah, it's a dope book.
That's a good book. What kind of book is it?
All right, so this lady gets framed for murder or whatever.
Okay, so it's like
she goes to jail.
What's it called? Fiction?
Yeah, fiction.
Okay.
She goes to jail and ends up breaking out and finding it was a dope book.
Okay. Favorite music artist?
So I don't really know, man. Like, who am I listening to right now? So I might Lil Baby. I do like NBA YoungBoy. I am liking Ride Wave. They're not my favorites though.
But that's who you got in play. Okay, that works. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I would have to say Colombiana is one of my favorite movies for sure. I do love Four Brothers. That movie always comes to my head when I think of like favorite movies. And like The Wood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, to get y'all a throwback.
Yeah.
Honorable mention. Because you talked about basketball. Who's your favorite basketball player?
I'm not a LeBron fan. Ray John Rondo's my favorite basketball player.
Okay, not a LeBron. Dang, LeBron been out here doing his thing.
He do. I respect LeBron.
Okay.
But he's a crybaby.
Okay. All right. So that
if people just play basketball, like I love KG, Kevin Garnett. I love the whole Paul Pierce. I love Rondo. I respect LeBron.
Okay.
But I just want him to just play basketball. Like you get fouled. You're not gonna get them all. Get up, get back down, play some defense.
Your guy clients probably love being able to chit chat with you.
We talk basketball. You know, we talk the whole Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate. We do all that. So.
See, and that's so different from my sessions because when I want to bond, like we'll talk about like hair and like lashes and nails.
Man, we talk about the same thing. Like if I swear, like after my sessions, I be wondering, like I be in the middle of the session, I'm like, man, I wish we can just have a beer together, like.
Cause sometimes it's like that. You meet people that you be like, you're real cool, and I will hang out with you if this wasn't our existing relationship.
I'm like, man, like why can't we just be like friends?
Be cool, yeah.
If there was a way to like, I don't know, like to
ethically do that,
navigate both of them, I definitely. We just have like dope conversations.
Good conversations, yes. I think that, and that's so important. That's what keeps people with you. I think to wrap up, I hear a phrase about like a therapist's job is to outwork themselves, where like people don't need you. But I also think like the people who truly value you in their life and the space that you hold, like they're always gonna make room for you. Like I said, it's been periods of time where I was doing okay, but I still kept those monthly check-ins with my therapist because I knew I needed that space. And the thing is, the moment you stop going to therapy, other stuff start happening. Right. So that's something else to be aware of. But last thing I wanted to mention too. So Chris Rock, there was an article floating around Twitter, an interview he did where he pretty much said that he kind of engages in like a group therapy type thing with like 3 other people, like an hour a day. So people were like, pretty much he does therapy 7 hours. And he was like, well, when you think about it, like when you go to the gym, if somebody was to go to the gym for an hour a day for a week, you wouldn't really say much about it. You may say like, you don't get no rest days, but you wouldn't really make a fuss about it. And
for sure.
While I wouldn't, if it was Chris, if you paying Chris Rock money, I would see you an hour a day. If it came down to it, like whatever, when do you need me?
7 hours,
but I also think like that goes back to your point about just reframing how we look at it.
The gym is so accepted. Like everybody go to the gym.
Or going to your regular doctor.
But that's not even really accepted amongst like African American men for real. Like,
right, because y'all don't like, they don't like to go to the doctor. That's a whole nother conversation.
That is a whole nother one. But it's just all about just reframing it, man, normalizing it. Like, and I'm so glad like Mike Tyson and Boosie did that. Like, you can tell Boosie was stunned. Yeah. Like, he was asked questions, and that goes back to what we was talking about earlier. Like, you got to get outside your friends. Boosie's never been challenged like that. Ever. No one's ever challenged him and asked him those questions.
Yeah. And people be resistant to interact with people that challenge them because they like to sit in their ignorance or in their bubble.
Which is an addiction, too. Yeah. Sitting in your ignorance is also an addiction.
Okay, I think that's a perfect place to leave it. All right, I hope y'all got a lot from this. Saiyd, tell them how they can find you.
Twitter, I'm not on Twitter. I need to get Twitter. I don't even know my Instagram name. It's just King Sci-Fi.
Oh my God, that's okay. I'm gonna put the man's information in here for y'all, for anybody that wants to contact him for services or just wants to follow him on Instagram. He has some pretty cool like mental health related content as well. All right, y'all, have a good one.